session. Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 4, The Appearance of Sri Narada. We are starting a new chapter today called The Appearance of Sri Narada. Text 1. Vyasa Uvacha Iti Bruvanam Samstuya Muninam Dirghasatrinam Bruddha Kulapati Sutam Bahurcha Śaunaka Bravīt. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Vishwaguru Abhay Charana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. On hearing Sūta Gosvāmī speak thus, Śaunaka Muni, who was the elderly, learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Sūta Gosvāmī by addressing him as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In a meeting of learned men, when there are congratulations or addresses for the speaker, the qualifications of the congratulator should be as follows. He must be the leader of the house and an elderly man. He must be vastly learned also. Sri Śaunaka Ṛṣi had all these qualifications, and thus he stood up to congratulate Sri Sūta Gosvāmī when he expressed his desire to present Srimad Bhāgavatam exactly as he heard it from Shukadev Goswami and also realized it personally. Personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous Acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous Acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization. The leader of the assembly, Śaunaka, could estimate the value of the speaker, Sri Sūta Gosvāmī, simply by his uttering Yathādhītam and Yathamati, and therefore he was very glad to congratulate him in ecstasy. No learned man should be willing to hear a person who does not represent the original Acharya. So the speaker and the audience were bona fide in this meeting where Bhagavatam was being recited for the second time. That should be the standard of recitation of Bhagavatam so that the real purpose can be served without difficulty. Unless this situation is created, Bhagavatam recitation for extraneous purposes is useless labor both for the speaker and for the audience. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. So, we have begun the new chapter, the fourth chapter in the first canto of Bhagavatam, and this chapter talks about the exact situations when Vyasadeva compiled this Srimad Bhagavatam on the order of his spiritual master, Sri Narada Muni. Therefore, this chapter is titled The Appearance of Sri Narada. Narad Muni appeared in front of Srila Vyasadeva. When he appeared, not very satisfied, even after compiling all the Vedas, the Itihasa, the Vedanta Sutras. And at that time, Sri Narad Muni, who is an empowered incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who also played the role of the spiritual master of Sri Vyasadeva, he appears and he gives the reason why Vyasadeva is dissatisfied even after compiling huge volumes of Vedic literature. And on his instruction, Vyasadeva compiles Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the summary of this chapter. So, in the previous chapter, last shloka, we have heard what Sūta Gosvāmī mentioned. Sūta Gosvāmī mentioned to all the sages of Naimisharanya, Yathādītam Yathāmatihi Soham va Shravayishyami. He said, I heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from the lotus lips of Shukadev Goswami when he was narrating it to Maharaj Parikshit, and I have understood it by his mercy, and I have also heard it with rapt attention. By his mercy, I was able to understand the whole subject matter. Therefore, now I shall recite the same Bhagavatam to all of you, the sages of Naimisharanya, and I shall recite this Bhagavatam as far as I have realized it. Yatādhītam yathāmati. So, this was what was spoken by Sūta Gosvāmī, and when this was heard by the sages of Naimisharanya, they were all very pleased. They were all very happy. And in reply to that, the spokesperson of the sages of Naimisharanya, the eldest of them all, the most learned of them all, that is Śaunaka Ṛṣi, he is congratulating Sūta Gosvāmī. He is appreciating Sūta Gosvāmī. He is glorifying Sūta Gosvāmī. So that is reported to us by Srila Vyasadeva, who is the author of this book. So the verse starts with Vyasa Uvacha. So Vyasadeva is telling us what was the response of Śaunaka Ṛṣi after Sūta Gosvāmī spoke in that way. So Vyasa Uvacha iti Bruvanam samstuya. Bruvanam means speaking. Iti thus. Samstuya means congratulating. Muninam Dirgha Satrinam. Muninam, of all the great sages who had assembled there in the Naimisharanya, in the forest of Naimisharanya. We have read this in the first chapter itself. All the sages of Naimisharanya, they had assembled there for performing Dirgha Satra, a very prolonged sacrifice for Lokahita, for the benefit of the whole world. So, in that Dirgha Satra, in that prolonged engagement of performance of sacrifice, all these sages had assembled and they heard the reply, or they heard what Sūta Gosvāmī spoke. In response, Vruddhaha Kulapati Sūtam. Vruddhaha means elderly, senior most. Kulapatihi means head of the assembly of that sages of Naimisharanya. Sūtam Bahushravaha. Bahushravaha means highly learned, very much learned. And who was that? Śaunakaha. His name was Śaunaka Ṛṣi. Abravīt. He addressed. Whom did Śaunaka Ṛṣi address? Sūtam Abravīt. He addressed Sūta Gosvāmī. That is what is this verse talking about. So, Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport that in an assembly, if one has to actually be qualified to congratulate a great personality, he must also be qualified. So that is pointed out by Srila Prabhupada here. What are the qualifications of such a speaker of congratulations, or uh, a speaker who is going to address a great personality within that assembly? So that person should be, first of all, Vriddha. Vriddha means he should be an elderly man, and then he must be Kulapatihi, he must be the leader of the house. That means all of the members should have unanimously agreed to that this person is our representative, he is the leader of our group or our assembly. And not only that, that is not sufficient. It's not sufficient that he must be senior most in age, and he must be the leader of the assembly, unanimously agreed by all the members of the assembly. That's not sufficient, but he must be Bahush Bahur Ruchaha. Bahuruchaha. That means he must be very learned also. He must be vastly learned. That's very important. That means he must have knowledge, he must have spiritual realization, and such a person uh, is eligible to actually congratulate uh, or address the speaker of that assembly. That's very important. So this is called Sabha Maryada. This is actually the protocol that has to be followed, right? So, for example, recently I was watching a short clip of our president of our country, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, conferring the Padma Awards to certain eminent personalities of different backgrounds in different walks of life, the achievers who have done great things. So she was conferring the Padma Awards. And when she walked into the assembly, everybody stood up, including the Prime Minister of the country. Including Prime Minister, everybody who was there in the assembly, they stood up, respecting the president. Now, this is called protocol. This is Sabha Maryada. So, one must always be conscious of this. The etiquettes that has to be followed, they have to be followed. Why etiquettes are important? You know, we may think, oh, these are all external things. Why in a spiritual community of devotees, why should we consider etiquettes? Why it is important? Because etiquettes help us to not become a victim of the familiarity of devotees. Many times when we meet devotees, we may know them from many years, and because of that, some kind of a familiarity will be there. Oh, I know this Prabhu, from so many years. I have heard so many of his classes. I have spoken to him personally on several occasions. So in that way, there is a familiarity. And because of that familiarity, we may start taking for granted the devotees. And we may sometimes loosely talk or loosely behave. Now, when we do that, it will lead to Vaishnava Aparadha. It will lead to offense towards devotees. And as we know, because of Vaishnava Aparadha, our progress in spiritual life becomes slow. It becomes affected. Therefore, the Acharyas and the scriptures have recommended certain protocol or certain etiquettes that have to be followed when we are dealing with devotees, so that we save ourselves from Vaishnava Aparadha and we take the maximum benefit of association of such devotees. That's a very important thing. So whenever we meet a devotee, definitely we must fold our hands and just say at least Hare Krishna Prabhu with a smiling face. In fact, the scriptures say that when we meet a devotee and we don't become happy and we don't greet that devotee, then it is actually an offense. So therefore, these are all why these strictures have been given in the scriptures, so that we don't become victim of familiarity breeds contempt. Right? We are properly situated in our consciousness and we learn how to respect the devotees. That's very, very important. So here, all these qualifications were present in Śaunaka Ṛṣi. What are the qualifications? He was very learned, he was senior most in the assembly, and he was accepted as the leader of the assembly by everybody. Therefore, Śaunaka Ṛṣi became the spokesperson on behalf of the sages of Naimisharanya. He addresses Sūta Gosvāmī. Right? So, one more important point that Prabhupada mentions in this purport is what is the meaning of realization? Right? Yatha dhitam yatha matihi. Sūta Gosvāmī had mentioned that I'm going to speak to you Bhāgavatam as far as my realization allows. As far as what I have realized after hearing from Shukadev Goswami, I'm going to speak to all of you. That is what Sūta Gosvāmī had mentioned. So what is the meaning of realization? So Prabhupada says, personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous acharya. So it's not that, oh, realization means, oh, I know more than my acharya, I know more than my guru. Sometimes we have this kind of an idea. Oh, Prabhupada has presented very simple manner. No, I will go and study many more scriptures and I will quote from many more evidences, many more scriptures. No, that should not be the mood. Our mood should be, first I have to be respectful and I should be fully confident that whatever Srila Prabhupada has presented is sufficient. Prabhupada himself has mentioned this on many occasions, that whatever is required for you to go back to Godhead, all that knowledge is present in my books. And if you could not understand with one reading, Prabhupada recommended, read my books again and again, and all your questions will be surely answered. So, ours should not be a scholarly approach. The scholarly approach is, oh, I'm going to quote from n number of scriptures and I'm going to show myself to everybody how learned I am and how I am so scholarly. That should never be the mood of studying Bhagavatam. So here Sūta Gosvāmī is mentioning that by the mercy of Shukadev Goswami, I was able to understand and realize Bhagavatam, and I'm going to present my realizations by the mercy of Shukadev Goswami. That's a very, very important thing. So, whenever we begin to study Bhagavatam, first we offer our respectful obeisances to our beloved spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Because of Srila Prabhupada, we are able to understand Bhagavatam. We are able to even access Bhagavatam, read the Bhagavatam by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So this we should never forget. So realization does not mean we try to surpass the spiritual master or the previous acharyas in the parampara. We should not surpass. And Prabhupada is saying, we must have full confidence in the previous acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. So what is the meaning of realization? Realization is neither parrot-like recitation, nor it is changing the original purpose of Bhagavatam. Realization means having full confidence in the presentation of the previous acharya, and at the same time presenting the subject matter based on the particular circumstances in a manner which is suitable for the audience to understand, appreciate and follow. This is called realization. So realization does not mean simply, twisting and turning the verses, the context or the meaning, trying out. So Prabhupada is saying here, the original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it. This is very important. Huh? Like many people interpret Bhagavad Gita. They say, actually, Battle of Kurukshetra never happened. Battle of Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra represents your body. The five Pandavas represents your five Pancha Pranas, or the five senses within your body. Like this, they give some interpretation. So what they are trying to do is they are trying to screw out some obscure meaning. They are not maintaining the original purpose and intention of the scripture. Now, this is called misinterpretation. This is not called realization. Realization has to be in line with the proper parampara understanding. Right? So just like Prabhupada gives an example, just like a scientist, if he is discovering something new, a new concept, he should be able to explain his new concept or theory based on the already well accepted, well established theories and facts established by the previous authorities, previous scientists. That's the meaning. Right? You may be coming up with a new concept, you may be coming up with some revolutionary theory, but you should be able to explain it based on the well-established facts and fundamentals established by the previous scientists. The same thing applies to spiritual realization also. Spiritual realization means, yes, whatever I am presenting, that has to be in line with the proper parampara understanding. Then it is proper. We should not try to obscure the meaning. We should not try to screw out some undesirable meaning out of it. At the same time, we should be able to present the subject matter in an interesting manner so that the audience can appreciate and understand the subject matter. This is called realization. So this is what Prabhupada is explaining here. So another important point is, Prabhupada is mentioning Śaunaka Ṛṣi, who was the leader of the assembly of the sages of Naimisharanya, just by hearing these two words spoken by Sūta Gosvāmī, that is of the previous chapter, last shloka, Yatha Dhitam Yatha Mati, as far as my realization, as far as I have realized, I will speak to you, Bhāgavatam, he said, right? Just by hearing these words of Sūta Gosvāmī, Śaunaka Ṛṣi could understand the value of Sūta Gosvāmī. Right? That means, here Prabhupada is saying, very important point is, no learned man should be willing to hear a person who does not represent the original Acharya. Right? We should not hear Bhāgavatam from somebody who is not representing Srila Prabhupada. Very, very important. Right? Nowadays, we all know that there are clearly two camps in ISKCON, unfortunately. And our ISKCON Bangalore group of temples, we follow Srila Prabhupada as the sole Diksha Guru, according to his own instructions, as he has given in the July 9th Institutional Directive, July 9th, 1977. But the other camp, they say the living Guru required. We need to follow a living Guru. That is their understanding. Now, on the social media, on the YouTube, Instagram, everywhere, you will find the lectures of the other camp devotees. And they may speak very well, they may give a scholarly presentation, they may present in a very interesting manner. All that is fine, but still we should not hear to them because they are not actually representing Srila Prabhupada, the original Acharya. Right? They may be presenting the same concepts from Prabhupada's books. They may be presenting Srila Prabhupada's books only. But since they have disobeyed a very, very important fundamental instruction of Srila Prabhupada about who is going to be the Diksha Guru, Prabhupada never appointed any guru after him. That we get to know by studying his conversations, his letters, everywhere. But still, they have deviated from this very fundamental instruction of Srila Prabhupada. And because of this, as Prabhupada is saying here in this purport, no learned man should be willing to hear a person who does not represent the original Acharya. Being loyal to Srila Prabhupada, being loyal to his desire, his command, his instruction, that is very, very important when we are following the parampara. Parampara doesn't mean I will take whatever I feel is good and I will add my own interpretations, my own ways of doing things. No, then you are disloyal to the parampara acharya. So, what Prabhupada is telling, what he we have to accept it completely. And those who originally follow Prabhupada completely, we have to hear from them only. Right? Otherwise, what happens is, for example, if you are hearing 9 things from a person, and all these 9 things are so good, 9 times you have liked a person's lecture online, a devotee's lecture, or you felt very good, 9 lectures you heard. And all of these, they are non-controversial points, and whatever Prabhupada has presented, very nicely this devotee has presented. So you are already developed a kind of appreciation towards that devotee in your heart. And now the 10th video that YouTube or Instagram is going to suggest will be about how living guru is required. 9 lectures are all about Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, very nice, you appreciate it. Now by the 10th one, since you have already 9 times appreciated and liked that devotee, now the 10th video that you're going to see, and in which he's going to say, no physical guru is required, this is what Prabhupada said, etc., etc. So psychology makes us believe that, see, 9 times he has told correctly, very nicely. Now 10th time also whatever he's telling must be correct. This is how we may get deviated, we'll get cheated. Prabhupada says appreciation is the first step towards surrender. So when we start appreciating somebody, then slowly, we also develop soft corner towards that person within our heart, and in a very subtle manner, without even knowing, we actually surrender to everything that that person speaks. So therefore, we should be very careful, especially because today on our mobile phones, we are able to access all kinds of content. And even within ISKCON, the followers of the deviant gurus, the self-made gurus, when we hear to them, it is very dangerous for our spiritual life. We should be very careful not to hear, right? We should stick to Srila Prabhupada's books, and we should hear from those who actually fully follow what Srila Prabhupada has told and who is representing Srila Prabhupada. So this is very, very important. We may think, oh, that is also Krishna conscious philosophy only. They are also devotees only. Yes, personally, we don't have to hate. We should never hate, or we should never pass any loose comments about any devotees, any Vaishnava. But from a distance, we can show our respect, but we should not hear to them. This is exactly what Srila Prabhupada said. Srila Prabhupada had instructed all of us, especially Prabhupada had written letters to his disciples during that time, saying that do not associate with my god brothers of Gaudiya Math. Now, if Prabhupada has to say so strongly, they are also devotees, they're all disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then why did Prabhupada say, don't associate with the Gaudiya Math devotees? Why? Because he said, these people have become asara. They have not actually understood the true spirit of their Acharya, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They have kept aside the preaching mission, and they're so busy fighting. They're so busy, debating who will inherit that Gaudiya Math building, the marble building at Bagh Bazaar. Prabhupada particularly mentioned this. So Prabhupada said they have become asara. They have not received They failed to receive the empowerment from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So we should not hear, we should not associate with them, Prabhupada clearly mentioned. In the same way, those who are following the bogus guru system, self-made guru system, which is not at all authorized by Srila Prabhupada, we should avoid hearing from them. So that is the whole point that we understand here. Okay, let's go to the next shloka, shloka number 2. Let's see what Śaunaka Ṛṣi actually said appreciating Sūta Gosvāmī. Śaunaka uvacha Sūta Sūta Mahabhaga Vadano Vadatam Vara Katham Bhagavatim Punyam Yadaha Bhagavan Shukaha. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Śaunaka said, O Sūta Gosvāmī, you are the most fortunate and respected of all those who can speak and recite. Please relate the pious message of Srimad Bhāgavatam, which was spoken by the great and powerful sage Shukadeva Goswami. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sūta Gosvāmī is twice addressed herein by Śaunaka Gosvāmī out of great joy because he and the members of the assembly were eager to hear the text of Bhagavatam uttered by Shukadeva Goswami. They were not interested in hearing it from a bogus person who would interpret in his own way to suit his own purpose. Generally, the so-called Bhagavatam reciters are either professional readers or so-called learned impersonalists who cannot enter into the transcendental personal activities of the Supreme Person. Such impersonalists twist some meanings out of Bhagavatam to suit and support impersonalist views, and the professional readers at once go to the 10th canto to misexplain the most confidential part of the Lord's pastimes. Neither of these reciters are bona fide persons to recite Bhagavatam. Only one who is prepared to present Bhagavatam in the light of Shukadeva Goswami, and only those who are prepared to hear Shukadeva Goswami and his representative are bona fide participants in the transcendental discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. Sūta Sūta Mahabhaga, Śaunaka Ṛṣi is saying out of ecstasy, he is uttering the name of Sūta Goswami 2 times. Sūta Sūta Mahabhaga. Mahabhaga means the most fortunate person. When will a person become most fortunate? That is mentioned by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Kripai Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says there are so many innumerable wandering living entities in this material world, in this universe, who are doing Brahmanda Brahmana. We are all, moving, transmigrating from one life form to another life form, from one species to another species. We are all doing Brahmana. Brahmana means we are all roaming about in this material world. Among such souls who are all doing Brahmanda Brahmana, Kono Bhagyavan Jiva, there are few Bhagyavan Jiva. There are few most fortunate souls. Who are they? Guru Krishna Kripai Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. One who has received the combined mercy of a bona fide spiritual master and Lord Krishna. And through their blessings, one who has received the seed of bhakti. Such a person is called Bhagyavan, the most fortunate. And among such most fortunate, here Sūta Goswami is addressed as Mahabhaga. You are the most fortunate. Why? Because Sūta Goswami also, by the mercy of Krishna and Shukadeva Goswami, he heard the entire Bhagavatam from the bona fide speaker, from the bona fide Acharya, Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, he is addressed here as Mahabhaga. Sūta Sūta Mahabhaga Vadano Vadatam Varaha. Vada means please speak this Bhagavatam to us. Naha, unto us. Vadano Vadatam Vara. This is a very beautiful expression. Vara means the best or the most respected. Vadatam means one who can speak. Among all the people who can speak. There are many speakers, but you are Vadatam Varaha. You are the best among all the speakers. Why you are the best among all the speakers? Because you have actually realized Srimad Bhagavatam. And you not only realize, you are expert in presenting your realizations properly so that the audience can understand. Such people are called Vadatam Varaha, the best among the speakers. So you are Mahabhaga, O Sūta Gosvāmī, and you are Vadatam Varaha. You are the best among the reciters of Bhagavatam. And therefore, please tell us, Katham Bhagavatim Punyam. Please recite to us this Katha, this message of Bhagavatam, which is Punyam, which is very pious to hear. Yadaha Bhagavan Shukaha, that which was aha, means spoken by Bhagavan Shukaha, by the greatly powerful Shukadeva Goswami. Here Shukadeva Goswami is addressed as Bhagavan, not because he is the supreme personality of Godhead, but it means that he is very, very powerful. He is a special empowered personality by the Supreme Lord himself. So when Bhagavan is addressed to anybody else apart from Vishnu Tattva, we must know that this address is meant to recognize the empowerment of the Lord to that particular person. So that is why Shukadeva Goswami is addressed as Bhagavan here. So here two important things. The qualifications of Sūta Goswami is that he is Mahabhaga, he is most fortunate, and he is Vadatam Vara, he is the best among the reciters. And Bhagavatam, the qualification of Bhagavatam is what? It is Punyam. Just by hearing Bhagavatam, one can attain piety. And Shukadeva Goswami is an empowered speaker, powerful personality, great realized personality, and Sūta Goswami has heard directly from him. Therefore, Śaunaka Ṛṣi, who is actually the representative of all the sages of Naimisharanya, he is in this way requesting Sūta Goswami, please speak Bhagavatam to all of us. That is the meaning of this. So Prabhupada is writing in the purport, this shows the eagerness. The members of the assembly were eager to hear the text of Bhagavatam uttered by Shukadeva Goswami. So the first qualification for a person who wants to make spiritual progress is his eagerness. How eager we are to render service to the Lord. How eager we are to be in the association of devotees. How eager we are to understand Bhagavatam. Eagerness is very, very important. Rupa Goswami says there is only one price by which we can purchase Krishna. Ekalam Mulyam Tatra Laulyam. Mulya means price. What is the price? There is only one price you can purchase Krishna, and that is Laulyam, intense eagerness, intense greed to understand Krishna. Now that has been represented here through the words of Śaunaka Ṛṣi. And another important point that Prabhupada is mentioning here is they were especially joyful because they got an opportunity to hear from a bona fide speaker of Bhagavatam, that is Sūta Goswami. They were not interested in hearing it from a bogus person who could interpret in his own way to suit his own purpose. So again and again, Prabhupada is mentioning here, be careful, don't hear from so-called reciters of Bhagavatam, right, who are not authentic in the parampara system, who are not loyal to their acharya, who simply try to misinterpret the meaning of Bhagavatam. So do not hear from such speakers. They are all called bogus here. Now Prabhupada is saying there are two kinds of speakers of Bhagavatam who are not authentic, whom we should avoid. First is the professional reciters. Professional reciters means they make it as a way to earn their livelihood. Reciting Bhagavatam has been taken as a profession by them to earn their livelihood. Now, such people we should never hear. So what do? These professional reciters? they directly jump to the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, and specifically to those 5 chapters of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, where Krishna's Rasa Leela pastimes have been discussed, and which is the most confidential part of the Lord's pastimes. So they present it in a very loose manner, right? We should. These are how the professional reciters they present Bhagavatam, and we should not hear from them. And second thing is, the second kind of bogus reciters are the so-called learned impersonalists. Impersonalists. So they also recite Bhagavatam. They have no faith that the absolute truth is a person. They think that beyond this personality of Krishna, there is some impersonal Brahman, impersonal light, and that is most important. So whenever they explain Bhagavatam, they try to twist the verses of Bhagavatam to suit and support their impersonalist views. Finally, after hearing Bhagavatam, we should actually enter into a loving relationship with the personality of Godhead Krishna. But by hearing such impersonal misrepresentations, we will not be able to achieve that purpose. Therefore, these are the 2 types of non-bona fide persons who recite Bhagavatam, and one should carefully avoid such speakers. So we should hear only in the light of Shukadev Goswami, and then we can actually derive benefit from hearing Bhagavatam. So in this shloka, Mahabhaga, Sūta Gosvāmī is Mahabhaga. Why? Because he's most fortunate, directly heard from Bhagavan Shukaha, the empowered personality, Shukadev Goswami. And Sūta Gosvāmī is also Vadatam Varaha, because he is highly realized. He knows how to present Bhagavatam based on his realizations, so that by hearing such a narration, the audience also attain spiritual realization. Text 3. Kasmin yuge pravritteyam sthane vakena hetuna kutas sanchodita krishnaha kritavan samhitam munihi. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Śaunaka Ṛṣi continued. In what period and at what place was this first begun, and why was this taken up? From where did Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile this literature? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Because Srimad Bhagavatam is the special contribution of Srila Vyasadeva, there are so many inquiries by the learned Śaunaka Muni. It was known to them that Srila Vyasadeva had already explained the text of the Vedas in various ways up to the Mahabharata for the understanding of less intelligent women, Shudras, and fallen members of the family of the twice-born men. Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all of them because it has nothing to do with anything mundane. So the inquiries are very intelligent and relevant. So Śaunaka Ṛṣi, is continuing to question Sūta Gosvāmī after requesting him to narrate Bhagavatam. He is asking, Kasmin yuge pravritteyam, Kasmin, in which yuge, period of time, pravritteyam, pravritta, was begun, iyam, this Bhagavatam. So in which period of time, when exactly was this Bhagavatam compiled? Right? That is the first question. Sthane va kena hetuna. Sthane means in which place, where it was spoken or where it was compiled. Kena, on what? Hetuna, ground. So from where did Vyasadeva get inspiration to compile this Bhagavatam? Kutaha sanchoditaha. Kutaha sanchoditaha means kutaha, where from, sanchoditaha, inspired by. Krishna, here Krishna represents Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. So Vyasadeva's full name is Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. So Kritavan Samhitam Munihi. Munihi means the learned sage. Samhita means this Vedic literature called Bhāgavatam. Kritavan, he compiled. So, what was the inspiration? What inspired this Vyasadeva, the learned sage, to compile the Srimad Bhagavatam? And at what place and where and why this Bhagavatam was written? In what period it was written? These are all the questions that Śaunaka Ṛṣi is asking Sūta Gosvāmī. Now, Prabhupada is mentioning that since Bhagavatam is very, very special contribution of Vyasadeva, as we have seen in the first canto, in the very beginning, Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is what? Galitam Phalam. It is the most ripened fruit in Nigama Kalpataru, in the desire tree of Vedas. If Vedas, all the Vedic literature can be compared to a desire tree, and in that desire tree there is a most ripened fruit, and that most ripened fruit is this Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in Srimad Bhagavatam, the highest truth has been presented in an uncompromising manner. In other scriptures, Vyasadeva has compromised. Right? We will see that in the first canto. We'll see why I'm saying this. Vyasadeva has compromised. Because in other scriptures, Vyasadeva has told about Krishna and his various pastimes and various other avatars, but at the same time, Vyasadeva is also talking about other processes apart from bhakti, apart from pure devotional service. So therefore, there is a kind of compromise. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, uncompromisingly, Vyasadeva has presented the highest truth about Krishna, and he has unequivocally stressed on the importance of devotional service to Krishna in full surrender, to perform pure devotional service. Therefore, it is a very, very special Vedic literature, and that's why it's compared to the most ripened fruit in the desire tree of Vedic knowledge. And that is why Śaunaka Ṛṣi is so much interested to know the context of this Bhagavatam. Why, where, when, and how this Bhagavatam was compiled. Śaunaka Ṛṣi wants to know. Whenever we come across something wonderful, suppose you come across a very beautiful building, a monument, naturally you will ask, who has who has constructed this? And when was it constructed? And how much money was spent to make this? And how many craftsmen and how many architects or people were involved in making this building? So we get all these questions, isn't it? So therefore, Śaunaka Ṛṣi is asking such questions. Now, one more important point that Prabhupada is mentioning here is, now Vyasadeva, he divided the one Veda into four. This we have discussed in one of the sessions earlier. And he has also compiled the Upanishads, 108 primary Upanishads and many other Upanishads. And then he has also compiled the Puranas, 18 Puranas, 18 Upapuranas. Then he has composed Mahabharata, right? This we have seen. Stri Shudra Dvija Bandhunam Trayina Shruti Gocharam. So, Vyasadeva has compiled Mahabharata especially for the less intelligent class of people who are not so much interested to study the Vedas directly or who cannot understand the Vedas directly. So for their benefit, Vyasadeva has compiled Mahabharata. After doing all this, and then finally Vyasadeva has also compiled the Vedanta Sutras in the form of short codes. He has summarized all the Vedic knowledge as sutras. Now after doing all this, why did Vyasadeva feel that he should create or he should compile the Srimad Bhagavatam? That is a specific inquiry here, right? And Prabhupada is saying, Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all of those different literatures compiled and collected by Vyasadeva previously. So it is very, very special because it has got nothing to do with anything mundane. So the inquiries of Śaunaka Ṛṣi are very intelligent and relevant, right? We also have the ability to ask questions. So when we study Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, one important thing we understand is what kind of questions we should ask, right? That is very important. Like Arjuna's questions, if you study Arjuna's questions in Bhagavad Gita through the different chapters, from first chapter till the 18th chapter, you will see what is the kind of questions we must ask, right? Like for in the third chapter, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is asking a question. Athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichan api varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. Arjuna is asking, O descendant of Vrishni, Krishna, please tell me what is that which forces a person to act in sinful way, much against his wish, as though he is employed by some external force. This is a very intelligent question, right? Many times we act, we know what is correct, we know what is wrong, but sometimes we are forced to act in a wrong manner. So Arjuna is saying, what is that force which is making a person act sinfully? Now, this is an example for relevant inquiry, right? We have to ask such questions from the spiritual master. We should have these questions in mind when we study these scriptures. Then we get the maximum benefit of studying these scriptures, right? And if we don't have these questions, of course, when we study Srila Prabhupada books, we understand, oh, these are the relevant questions that I should be asking, isn't it? So these are very, very important. So the questions asked by Śaunaka Ṛṣi about the context of Bhagavatam are very important, intelligent, and relevant. Let's go to the next verse, text 4. Tasya putro mahayogi samadran nirvikalpakaha ekantamatirunnidro godho modha iveyate. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation, Śaunaka Ṛṣi continued, his, that is Vyasadeva's son, was a great devotee, an equibalanced monist, whose mind was always concentrated in monism. He was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Sūta Gosvāmī was a liberated soul, and thus he remained always alert, not to be trapped by the illusory energy. In the Bhagavad Gita, this alertness is very lucidly explained. The liberated soul and the conditioned soul have different engagements. The liberated soul is always engaged in the progressive path of spiritual attainment, which is something like a dream for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul cannot imagine the actual engagements of the liberated soul. While the conditioned soul thus dreams about spiritual engagements, the liberated soul is awake. Similarly, the engagement of a conditioned soul appears to be a dream for the liberated soul. A conditioned soul and a liberated soul may apparently be on the same platform, but factually they are differently engaged, and their attention is always alert, either in sense gratification or in self-realization. The conditioned soul is absorbed in matter, whereas the liberated soul is completely indifferent to matter. This difference is explained as follows. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Tasya putraha. Tasya here refers to Vyasadeva, because in the previous shloka it was talking about Vyasadeva. When did Vyasadeva compile Bhagavatam? And what was his inspiration and all those things, right? So Vyasadeva was talked about in the previous shloka. Therefore here Tasya refers to his. His means Vyasadeva's. Tasya putraha, Vyasadeva's son, that is Sūta Gosvāmī. What are his qualities? He is Mahayogi. He is a great devotee. And Samadruk, he was equibalanced, equipoised. And he is Nirvikalpaha. Nirvikalpaha means he was completely absorbed in the philosophy of monism. Monism means this impersonal understanding. That is called monism. Impersonal understanding. Right? And Ekanta Matihi. He was fixed in his mind on the absolute truth, fixed in monism or oneness of mind. He was fixed, ekantamatihi, and he was unnidraha. He surpassed nescience. Nidra means sleep, and actually sleep represents ignorance. Unnidraha means one who is above. Ut plus nidra, unnidra, one who is above the nescience or ignorance. So that was his quality. So he was unnidraha, he was completely enlightened soul. And gudha mudha iveyata. Gudha means he was not exposed to everybody. Therefore, mudha, he appeared like a mudha, a foolish person, an ignorant person. That was his qualification. So why Shukadev Goswami's topic has come in the shloka? Because Śaunaka Ṛṣi is going to say further after this, in the next shloka, he's going to say that Shukadev Goswami, he narrated this Bhāgavatam to the great Emperor Maharaj Parikshit. Therefore, how did he actually get attracted to this Bhāgavatam? Because here, as it is said here, he's already Mahayogi, he's a great devotee, he was Samadrik, he has got nothing to do with material things, and he is Nirvikalpaha, he is completely absolute, he is fixed up in his understanding of the impersonal absolute truth, he is Ekantamatihi, and he is Unnidraha, he is free from all ignorance, right? So, the point here is, Prabhupada is talking about the difference between liberated soul and the conditioned soul. Shukadev Goswami is a liberated soul because he's always alert not to fall trap into Maya. That is how a liberated soul is always alert. And a conditioned soul, he is also very alert because he wants to use every opportunity in his life to engage in sense gratification. Right? So in the book called Science of Self-Realization, you will find a short essay by Srila Prabhupada. Who is crazy? Right? Who is crazy? For the materialistic person, devotees are crazy. Oh, what are these devotees doing? Every day they are simply saying Krishna, Krishna, they are chanting Hare Krishna. And they're simply taking up some tapasya, singing and dancing. What is this they are doing? And they must be crazy, they must be brainwashed. That's how materialistic people perceive the devotees' engagements. And how do the devotees perceive the materialistic people? Devotees also think, oh, what are these materialistic people doing? Simply engaged like animals. How can somebody lead a life like this? A pure devotee, when he sees the materialistic people's, way of life, he thinks, oh, these people are like animals. It's a very deplorable situation. So these people are crazy. So for the conditioned souls, liberated souls are crazy. And for the liberated souls, conditioned souls are crazy. So Prabhupada is quoting, he is referring to this verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Yanisham sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami. So, for a materialistic person, day and night, what is day for a materialistic person is night for the self-realized soul. And what is day for the self-realized soul is night for a materialistic person. What does it mean? Their activities are totally opposite, totally different from each other. Right? Both of them may be engaged in different activities, but the goal of liberated souls is self-realization, but the goal of materialistic conditioned soul is sense gratification. So Prabhupada is saying, the engagement of a conditioned soul appears to be a dream for the liberated soul. And for the liberated soul, the engagements of the conditioned soul appear to be a dream. Dream means something which is not true, which is simply unworthy, isn't it? So, here Shukadev Goswami, he appeared to be mudha to the ordinary conditioned souls of this material world, right? Because like a mad person, he was even naked and he was just traveling all over, and he had got nothing to do with any material activities. He was not attracted to anything material, mundane in this world. Therefore, he appeared to be like a lost person. He appeared to be like a mudha, a foolish person, ignorant person. But actually, he was a great Mahayogi. So don't judge a book from its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. This is a saying. Just by seeing the cover page of a book, you cannot actually judge a book. In the same way, a Vaishnava or a liberated soul, just by his looks or just by understanding from which family he has come, from which part of the country or which part of the world he has come, we should never judge a person. In the Padma Purana, it is said, a devotee, Gurushu Naramatihi, Sa Naraki, a person who considers a liberated personality, a bona fide spiritual master, a Vaishnava Acharya, to be an ordinary conditioned soul of this world, then such a person, his consciousness is hellish. That means he is fit to be sent to hell. That is the conclusion of the scriptures. So, a liberated soul cannot be understood just by looking at his appearance or even by seeing his activities. One cannot understand what is his spiritual position. So, we have to understand from a bona fide source. We have to understand from the scriptures. So that is the position of Shukadev Goswami. So he was a Mahayogi. He was Nirvikalpaha. He was fully fixed up in the impersonal understanding. But after he heard Bhagavatam from his great father Vyasadeva, he actually got attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he became a pure devotee. So, Śaunaka Ṛṣi, he is speaking all of these things to set the context of Bhagavatam about the circumstances in which Bhagavatam was compiled by Vyasadeva, and he also wants to know the circumstances in which Shukadev Goswami got attracted to Bhagavatam and what led him to speak this Bhagavatam in the assembly on the banks of river Ganga to Maharaj Parikshit. So there are some more verses that Śaunaka Ṛṣi is going to speak. That means some more questions he is going to ask Sūta Gosvāmī that we will see in the coming sessions. So we'll close here. Any questions or quick comments by anybody? We can take one question if anyone has. Okay, so there are no questions. So
Hare
thank you very
Krishna.
much for your time. Yes, Pramod.
Yeah, Prabhu. So I have one question, Prabhu. Like most of time, Prabhu, in North India, so we see many professional Bhagavad Katha preacher. They'll
Yeah,
come and they normally 7 days or 8 days normally they conduct the Bhagavad Katha. So
yeah,
most of us we go and listen to them. So should we listen or not like such Bhagavad Katha, Prabhu?
yeah.
Like
We should not listen. We should not listen. That is what I told him. That's what Prabhupada is also telling, right? So now in 7 days, Shukadev Goswami spoke the entire Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. But the entire Bhagavatam was spoken in 7 days. Now today, whatever Bhagavata Saptahas happen, they're only namesake Saptaha because definitely they're not going to cover the entire subject matter presented in Bhagavatam. They only select some famous, some very special, episodes or chapters from Bhagavatam. That too, since they are not coming, most of them not coming from a bona fide Vaishnava Sampradaya, they try to interpret in their own way. So hearing to such Bhagavata Kathas is very risky for one who wants to make spiritual advancement. So one should not go and hear to professional reciters. So instead, one should hear from Srila Prabhupada, one should study from Srila Prabhupada's books and try to understand Bhagavatam. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Good.
So thank you very much. We shall meet again in the next session. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vishwa Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.